You guys, my mother just recently told me a story that I can't stop thinking about. And all I can think about is, what is wrong with people? Why would you do that?
We always have an odd one in the crowd.
So it's kind of odd.
Decidedly
Doesn't
odd.
that strike you as a little bit odd?
No, that doesn't strike me as a little bit odd.
It's the Bob and Sheri Oddcast, with stuff we wouldn't, couldn't, or shouldn't do on the regular show. Now, here's the Oddcast.
So before I tell you guys this story, there's a couple of things that you have to know about my mom. For starters, my mom lives 1,800 miles away from me and has for my entire adult life. When we moved west when I was 6, my mom stayed west. And, my brother Mark and I are back on the East Coast. And so there have been a lot of times in the course of our lives when my mom has needed some help and we've not been able to be there to do it. For example, my mom, since she was a little girl, has had all sorts of weird, wonky issues with her eyes. I'm talking like detached retinas and just all sorts of crazy, like optic nerve stuff, everything but having one fall out on her cheek like she's a Pekingese dog. And so she's had to have a number of eye procedures. She's had 2 just in the last month. And, there's some other stuff that goes on. My mom has an autoimmune disorder. She's had, like the standard round of things that human beings get afflicted with. Meanwhile, I'm raising 2 little kids by myself, and I have a job that is extremely inflexible. And it's really hard for me to get back and forth across the country with all my responsibilities. And so luckily we have a big extended family out west that has been able to step up. So that's the first thing you have to know, is that there have been times when my mom has needed family and neither my brother or I could be there. Here's the second thing. My mom, since she was a little girl, has been cleaning houses. My mother is the most meticulous of housekeepers. From the time she was little, she and her sister would clean her mother's house top to bottom. And that continued once a week until we moved to Wyoming. They would start at the front steps with a stiff brush and a bucket of like heavy duty cleaning solution, and they'd scrub the stoop. The steps from the sidewalk in Philly, it's filthy. They would scrub the stoop, everything, floors, windows, shelves, everything. They dusted light bulbs, for crying out loud. And so my mom is running a pretty tight ship at her place. And she's still like this. The only thing she's outsourced are windows, because she's 82 now with wonky vision and no depth perception. And we can't have people climbing up and down on ladders without depth perception. And she feels a little guilty for having to pay someone to clean her windows. Meanwhile, she's telling me this. And as far as I know, I live in a smoggy area because mine are filthy and I can't see outside. So she just is keeping it tight. And when you're a guest in her home, it's so nice. Like on the one hand, you don't want to spill anything. But on the other hand, have you ever stayed in a really nice hotel?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a step up from the Marriott. Maybe it's only once
And
or twice in your life.
Yeah.
But it's a real nice
intimidating.
hotel.
Yeah.
And everything is clean and everything is flawless and everything smells good. And you walk into that hotel room and you set your stuff down and you can feel your whole central nervous system go, there's no clutter. There's no mess. There's no dirty dishes. There's no glasses. My mom is cleaning it as you're using it. And as a result, when you stay in my mom's house, you truly feel that feeling that comes from being in a hotel. Everything is where it should be and there's zero clutter. It is delightful. My mom at 82 with wonky eyes still maintains a set cleaning schedule. Like on Tuesday, she does all the bathrooms, including the ones that no one's been in since last Tuesday. On Wednesdays, all the cushions come off the furniture and everything gets vacuumed. She, the curtain rods, she buffs the finials on the end of them. There's not a dusty light bulb. There's not a random piece of paper. It is the greatest and most soothing environment, which is why I have to ask, if you know my mom and you know that, why would you show up at her home unannounced with 2 middle schoolers and a giant reptile without a cage? Because that's what happened. I'm going to tell you about it. So we have to go back about 12 years or so. And my mom has had to have surgery on like her gallbladder. And, nowadays that's a drive through procedure at Jack in the Box. You just open the car door and they take your gallbladder out and send you home with Tylenol. But 12
Yeah.
years ago, especially for a person my mom's age, she was in the hospital for a few days. And because of her autoimmune disorder, they have to be extra careful because her her immune system attacks itself. So they have to be really careful with any kind of sickness or infection. So they're going to send her home, and the doctor tells her, "We're going to need you to stay in bed for at least 3 days, and you're not allowed to lift anything. We don't want you climbing stairs. We really don't want you bending down." In other words, all of the things my mom lives for: lifting things to clean them, bending down to scrub, walking up the stairs to vacuum, driving to the store to buy more Clorox. These are all off the table for her. And she's really, really wiped out because the illness that led up to this procedure really took it out of her. And my mom is one of those people, Lamar, who has trouble keeping weight on. We can just LOL, OLOL.
Yeah. I know what she means. I struggle my own self.
What a burden.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's see. You have Mick Jagger lips and can't keep weight on, and I am a small, fuzzy-headed potato. Genetics are a real spin of the roulette wheel, aren't they, Mom? So, at this point, my sister-in-law, who is no longer with us, she has crossed into the next realm. My sister-in-law decides that she's going to come down from Idaho, where she lives, and she's going to tend to my mom for a handful of days, like 5-6 days. And that's great because my sister-in-law she's a really kind person. And, she knows my mom like the back of her hand. So she knows what to cook for my mom. And she knows that you can't fuss over my mom too much. You can bring her a cup of tea and fluff a pillow, but then you best get the hell out of there because she doesn't want to be hovered over. She's one of those people. So here comes it's great. It's such a plan. Oh, thank God for Kathy coming from Idaho to look after our mom. So, knock, knock. And Fran, we're here. And my mom is in bed. And she assumes by we're here that my sister-in-law has brought her husband. But no, my sister-in-law has brought her 2 middle school-aged granddaughters and their 2.5-foot long pet iguana. And the iguana does not have a cage. Now, you are dealing with someone who lives in a sterile environment I'm telling you, nothing ever out of place. And there is a giant reptile shuffling around. At this time, my mom has both of her dogs. They're still living. A couple of they're Bichons. Couple of Bichons. And these are darling dogs. These are like stuffed animals, right? But they're dogs. And once upon a time, roughly 85 million years ago, they were wolves, these Bichons. And these 2 dogs who have never so much as gotten one of their perfectly groomed curls out of place, they see what looks to them like a big ass dinosaur and they lose their minds. And suddenly they remember that they are related to wolves and they become like snarling predators. So now my mother is hearing this mayhem and she rolls herself out of bed with her surgical dressings. She limps into the room and she beholds my sister-in-law, the 2 children, and what looks like some sort of Allosaurus hissing at the dogs. And the kids are, "Oh, Grandma, oh, these dogs they're gonna eat." I forget what the freaking thing's name is, Nacho or something. They're gonna eat. And my mom is like, "What is this?" And my sister-in-law goes, "Oh, Fran, you relax and go back to bed." Okay. It is very difficult for anyone to relax in that circumstance. My mother has never spent 5 minutes relaxed in her entire life. And there she is gripping her freshly operated on midsection and watching her dogs losing their mind over what seems to be a giant reptile. My mom's on painkillers. Is it possible that none of this is real? Who can say? So My mom's like, okay, everybody stop. You need to put the whatever that is in its cage. Leah, remember to bring the cage.
Oh,
What? Your dogs are going to kill Nacho. So now remember, my mom just came home from the hospital. You know that groggy feeling you have from the anesthesia and the pain medication and everything hurts. And this is the scene that's unfolding in her pristine living room. So my mom sits down and tries to calm the children down. No, calm down. Lily and Millie, Kathy, go put Lily and Millie in their crates. Put the dogs in their crates. Everyone calm down. Stop crying. Stop crying. Stop crying. The dogs, we thought your dogs were nice. The dogs are nice, but they are the descendants of wolves and they want to eat your lizard. So the lizard needs to go somewhere else. The lizard can't stay here because my dogs are going to get your lizard. And now this is where my mom, and I guess this is where I get it. This is where my mom decides to hook a sharp left turn into Gruesome Town. Because here's my mom whacked on painkillers and anesthesia. Millie and Lily, they're going to chase your lizard. And when they catch it, they're going to tear it from limb to limb. And it's going to be gruesome and terrible, girls. It's going to be a painful death for the lizard, and it's going to make a mess on Grandma's carpets. And it's going to be sad because Lily and Millie can't help being dogs. They used to be wolves. And you're going to be sad when your lizard is shredded. And now the kids are like, and here comes my sister-in-law, Fran, what's going on? Oh, well, you brought a giant 2-foot plus long lizard into my house without a cage is what's going on. What's the plan? And so the plan is that the lizard was either going to, I don't know, make friends with the two Bichon dogs, or maybe the lizard was going to be in the bathroom by itself for a while. But of course, when they brought the lizard into the house, they didn't immediately go, all right, make sure the dogs are put up, or you run and put the lizard in the bathroom. Instead, you see people with these reptiles on leashes. Instead, here comes this poor reptile who's done nothing wrong to no one, right? Here comes this thing. You know how they kind of walk sort of jaunty when they're on a leash? This thing comes strolling in like it's having a weekend away from home out of the terrarium. Has no idea there are dogs there. The dogs have never seen anything like this before. And there is my poor mother, freshly post-op. And this, by the way, has come to help her. This is the part where she's getting some help as she recovers from this surgical procedure. And this went on for 5 solid days.
Oh my.
Lamar, are there enough paper bags in the kitchen of your trailer for Doris Richardson to have endured this?
No. That just seems to me. I just can't.
Your response.
If I'm going to help somebody, the least amount of people I carry with me, unless we're going to move a house, if I'm just going to go care for someone and sit with them or help them or whatever, well, that just makes no sense. One person should have just came. Somebody else stays back with the kids and the lizard.
One person, no lizard.
Or one person, 2 kids, no reptile. Or one person, 1 reptile with a terrarium, no kids. Or all 3 of them in a cage. Like there were a lot of permutations here that we could have chosen. And now my mom is telling me a story. I'm crying laughing because she's trying to demonstrate the way the lizard moved and then the way the dogs would lunge at the lizard. And these 2 dogs, Lamar, were kind of like your Darby. They were the doted, pampered princesses of the family. They were my fur sisters. That's what they were. They were called my fur sisters, as Max will remember. Mm-hmm. They never missed a grooming appointment. They looked and smelled better than any of us, but they are dogs. And it is easy to forget that when a dog looks like that it's still a dog. Yeah. And in its heart, it doesn't know it looks like a bedroom slipper. It thinks it's some sort of mighty coyote or whatever.
Yes.
So So my mom is telling this story, and I'm staring at my mother, and all I could think was, what kind of life do you have that you could show up at somebody's house with 2 middle school age kids? And I keep saying middle school age kids because people who've had children know that that's its own special category, right? Toddlers are one thing, teenagers are another. Middle school
Yes.
kids are its own separate category.
Yeah.
What do you mean we don't have any gushers? Well, honey, we don't have any gushers because grandma lives alone in the desert with her 2 Bichons. Doesn't need gushers, right? So I am a child of trauma and chaos and violence. And as a result, I am very, very attuned to my environment and to small nuances in my environment. Changes in people's mood or tone of voice put me on high alert because I used to have to take steps to protect myself from whatever was about to blow. And it's a terrible way to live. Like, on the one hand, it's great because I don't show up at your house with a 2.5-foot long lizard. But on the other hand, really the only time that I can relax is when I am by myself. That is the only time where I feel like everything in the environment that can be controlled is controlled. And I don't have to focus on what other people are thinking or feeling or the tone of their voice or the look on their face. And I expect that neither of you really have any idea what that feels like, although you, Lamar, might, because your dad had had some weekend alcohol stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know that feeling that where you can just tell long before the other people in the room can that the tone has
coming.
shifted
It's coming.
and
Yeah.
it's coming.
Oh
right?
God. It's like it's almost in the air. It's
Yes.
you cannot put your finger on it, but yes. Yes.
That's my whole life. And it's exhausting. And I hate being this way. And let me go ahead and answer the question. I've had years of therapy. But we are who we are. And therapy doesn't give you a new identity. It helps you recognize these things so that I can recognize them and try to get out in front of them. Like when my husband and I were first dating, I would be like, are you angry? And he'd be like, no, why? I'm like, well, you have an angry face. And he would say, that's my thinking face. I'm like, well, your thinking face kind of looks like an angry face. And he's looking at me like, what in the hell is this woman talking about? Yeah. So we came up with a plan that I would, rather than reacting to something that wasn't real, I would say to him, is that your thinking face? And he would go, that's my thinking face. And so like all these little crutches, all these little supports that you put around yourself when you are a person who lives in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's what it means to be a survivor of childhood trauma. You are constantly in one of those 4 positions. So my mom is telling me this story and she's laughing and I'm laughing and my brother is laughing. And I'm thinking, what must it be like to grow up in a family where it would never occur to you to not bring a giant reptile to the home of a convalescing person? Like, you don't maybe realize your privilege if you are the kind of person that just says, oh, I'm coming to help, and throws a couple of 12-year-olds and a reptile into the car and makes the drive. That tells me a lot about you, and you're blessed, and I envy you because clearly you come from a place where you didn't have to watch and listen and attend and carefully parse the meaning of even the way a person put a fork down on the table. You know what I'm talking about, Lamar?
Yeah.
That was a very aggressive fork drop.
Oh, yeah. Or how you light a cigarette, how you close the lighter. Oh, yes. And anybody that either you know exactly what we're talking about from experience or you don't.
And there's nothing in between. There's no I'm a little bit of a trauma. No, there is. There is the world where the click of a cigarette lighter can make you break out in a cold sweat, and the world where
Yes.
nothing makes you break out in a cold
Yes.
sweat. It's one of those it's one of the few things in life that I think is really black and white. So, and I'm asking questions because I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. I'm like, so wait, tell me, she drove all the way from Idaho with 2 children and an enormous reptile without a cage. Is that correct? Do I have that right? My mom's like, yes. And then my mom goes, and who even knows what that thing eats? Like, Mom, you just got off the operating table. It is not your job to know what that thing eats. Like, that's somebody else's job. So I said, Mom, I got to be honest with you, because my sister-in-law was a wonderful person. I got to be honest with you. You're my mother. You are the only mother that I will ever have in this life. You're it. You should be the one person in this world that I could show up and do any damn thing and you would still love me. And I would not come to your house with 2 12-year-olds and a reptile. I would not do that for the world. Like, how do people do that? And my mom goes, well, some people, they just live in the moment. Yeah, I've heard that. I think I've seen that in a fortune cookie even. But Lamar, how does that work?
I don't know. I don't know. It's the same thing. I mean, going to somebody's house, and all 3 of us are familiar with owning dogs. You're dogless right now, but you've got cats. Max has got the dog. And as far as I'm concerned, Darby would go with me everywhere. But I would never go to somebody's house. I would never do any and take a dog, much less a 2-foot-long lizard. Especially if I'm going to spend the night or spend a few days.
Without a
would do
cage.
that?
Without a cage.
Yes. There's just that is beyond. It is
And my
beyond.
mom, it is beyond. And my mom said, well, Sheri, I felt very bad for scaring those children about what the dogs would do to their lizard. And I was like, well, Mom, okay, first of all, no, because it was better to scare them and get the lizard out of there than to have the dog shred the lizard in front of them. And it happened because you didn't want to scare them by telling them how serious the situation was. Right or wrong? Is that right or wrong? Like, isn't it better?
Yes.
Reptile
Go
lives
ahead
to fight another day. Children not traumatized. Like, isn't that the way to go?
Because once it actually happens, it's too late to tell them about it. It's too late to warn them. It's over with.
And my mom said, well, they were very upset that the dogs would do that. And then I felt terrible. And I'm like, did you also have feelings of any sort about the fact that you crawled out of bed freshly post-op to find this sitcom episode in your living room? And she was like, well, I just don't even know what people think. And I cannot stop imagining what that night was like. What it would be like to wake up, if you've had even minor surgery with twilight anesthesia, you know how groggy and weird you are, to come to and to have that scene playing out in your living room and not feel like you were tripping. And I also wish I knew what it was like to be my sister-in-law, who apparently just lived in the
Felt
moment.
like it was nothing.
Yeah, if I woke up into that, I'd want more pain medication. And
Either that or you think you've had too much. So, we had a good laugh and I reflected on it and I realized most of the time I don't think about it because we are who we are. And it just seems like it's inevitable that you are who you are. Does it not? Like,
yeah,
like Max, this is who you are. How you think,
you
right?
have the wiring you have.
And you can't imagine, like, maybe you'd like to be different. Maybe you'd like to be more optimistic or more organized or more spontaneous, whatever it is, right? You'd like to be different, but at the end of it, you are who you are, right?
Yeah.
And so most of the time, like, I don't stop to think about the fact that I am 15 trauma responses loosely held together by yoga leggings and hair. Like, most of the time, I don't even think about how much of who I am is one endless fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. But thinking about that incident with the iguana, I don't know. It's been like a bucket of cold water. It's made me realize that I am wrapped real tight and just a little bit nuts. And that maybe all those years of therapy were not quite enough.
Well,
But I'm excited because Max and I are going to couples therapy together to save time and money.
That is good. That is good. That is
Yeah. He needs some help. I need some help. Neither one of us has time, and our insurance doesn't cover it. So we're going to couples therapy together. I don't know what Max is working on, but I'm going to try to develop a personality that isn't just one epic trauma response. And as we close here today, I got nothing against your reptiles. But if you're showing up at someone's house to take care of that person, you go ahead, you put that terrarium or whatever it's called in the trunk.
Or plan on buying one at
Please.
PetSmart.
Yeah.
For a 2-foot lizard. 2 feet.
And coming soon to the Bob and Sheri store, it's the Doris Richardson de-stress bag. It looks like a paper bag. It acts like medicine. You just breathe into it every afternoon. More and more, Lamar, your mama is my hero. That's it for this episode of the Oddcast. Our website is BOBANDSHERI.com. We'll see you next time on the Oddcast.